It's been 39 days since I've been sequestered, whatever that word is, since I've been given the task of protecting the last lemon tree. 39 days in this post-apocalyptic world. So here we are getting ready to kick off a brand new live stream. Here it is, no idea what day it is, but it's 39 days post. And we are getting ready to have an amazing live stream today. I'm just going to check in and make sure that we can monitor, make sure we don't have any audio glitches, make sure that everybody out there can hear me without any issue, and make sure that our oh, there we go, and make sure that our notifications are getting out to the people. So anyhow, let's get ready to kick this thing off. So it looks like our notifications just went out, and it looks like we're going to have some people bouncing in here to the room because we've got Chip in here. So I'm glad to see Chip. Chip, I've just been pontificating a little bit on the fact that it is now 39 days since I was given the task of protecting this last lemon tree, the last lemon tree in the post-apocalyptic world, and it has been quite a journey. So we have a ton of things that we're going to be talking about this fine morning, and let me just go over a few of the things that we want to cover today. We are going to cover a bunch of things. So, but let me start over again. This is Jeff here on the chain. Today on the HODL review, we're going to talk about centralized control of digital currency, the potential of deceptive practices by companies in the blockchain space. So I hope you guys are ready to talk about that, because guess what? It's all getting ready to start right now. Bam, there we go. All right, we're back. So what's up? Let's kick this off. We got a few people in the room. We're gonna develop. This thing is gonna churn. It's gonna get heated up. We got a lot of great things to cover. What's up, Twain Berg? Glad to see you in here. New name. Haven't seen you in the on the chain or the HODL review yet. So good to have you on. Let's enjoy a little bit of Segfredo. Let's get this thing going. Chip, if you can tweet this thing out, that could be extremely helpful. And we're going to start digging into this because we want to talk about China. We want to talk about deception. So here, let me get this started. For all those that are going to be watching this on the rebroadcast, I have been extremely pissed off lately about all the things that are going on around us with the stay-at-home orders, the stepping on our constitutional rights, people being forced to wear masks, misinformation, incorrect statistics. The list goes on and on and on. We're obviously living in this environment right now of incorrect media reporting with an agenda, and what I want to emphasize here and what we need to focus in on also is what about our digital currency space? What's going on with our digital currency space? So, we're all looking forward to this day where our digital currency hits the highest of the highs. Most of us got into this space for the potential investment opportunity, the potential for amazing returns. If you guys were in it in 2015, if you guys were in it in 2014, if you guys were in it in 2013, or all the way back in the beginning of Bitcoin, obviously you guys out there have made tons and tons of ROI on your investments. Now, what about those that got in 2017? What about 2018? I think at the end of the day, we all got in this, for the same reason. Again, that reason was to see our investment. We're investing in a speculative space. We're investing in a space that's just it was in its infancy, getting ready to explode, and that time frame could take who knows how much time, but we saw just a little glimmer of it back in 2017, 2018. We've been on this roller coaster ride. If you go back even before that, you saw the roller coaster, but you saw the progression and development within this space, which is really, really impressive. So again, most of us got into this for the potential investment, the potential for amazing returns. Some of us also got into this because it's probably one of the most astonishing technologies that's really revolutionizing, or has the opportunity to revolutionize how things are actually working, and we're starting to see that. But how many of us here, and this is probably the most poignant question of all, and I really wish we had more people already in the stream at this time, but this is probably one of the most poignant questions that we're going to ask, and that is, how many of us got involved to see this space being hijacked? So let me re-emphasize this. How many of us got involved in this space to see it get hijacked? Now, how many of us got into this space to see fraud, deception, and centralized control? Because that's what we want to talk about. There's a lot of great things. We're going to talk about all the amazing things. We want to focus on the good news. But when we only focus on the good news, we have to be very cautious of the fraud, the deception, and the centralized control that is slowly creeping into this space that can be so amazing. So that is, I want to throw that out to you guys, because I think it's really, really important as we start discussing this. I know it's early in the morning, first thing in the morning, we're going to get into this, but let's get into it. I want to see some of your comments. Hopefully we can get some more viewers on here. Hopefully everybody's getting their notifications this morning. But I know that there's been some YouTube glitches out there, because I've experienced them firsthand, getting notifications 2 days later. So I do want to give a few shout outs to people that bounced in here, because we did get Twain Berg bouncing in here, which it's great to see you. You've been following us on the chain. Really appreciate that. But it's great to see you now on with us on the live channel. Being able to see our live streams, our premieres, all that great stuff. We got Mark Sorelli on here. Good morning. Gonna butcher this. I don't know. Is that Chisme 121? Good to see you here. Matt LaRoche, as always, great to see you on here as well. And Texas XRP, what's up? What's up? So morning coffee and on the chain time. Grab your espresso. Grab your decaf. No, don't grab your decaf. Get whatever you're going to get. If you're going to go decaf, you might as well drink tea, and there's nothing wrong with drinking tea. I like mint tea. I like Earl Grey tea. I like chamomile tea. Put a little honey in it. Good stuff. But if you're going to drink coffee, you might as well drink espresso. So all right. So keep the comments going. I definitely want to see some great engagement. Any questions that you guys have as we go through this, throw it out. If you think I'm hitting on a sour note, you think differently, of a different of opinion, definitely throw it in there as well, and let's engage a little bit. But if you have nothing, you just want to sit back and listen, that's okay too, because we're gonna start tearing into this stuff. So again, let me go back, let's rephrase, and then let's start digging into this. But how many of us, what's up, Mullet, good to see you on. How many of us got involved to see this space hijacked, and how many of us got involved in this space to see fraud, deception, and centralized control? And I am going back because we want to focus in on, what was the title? China Digital the China Digital Currency and Deceptive Crypto Margin Trading. We're going to touch a little bit on both of those, and they're both very, very relevant. Now, again, I want to emphasize that there's amazing things on the horizon. If I didn't think there were amazing things and I just wanted to be negative all the time, I wouldn't be doing this YouTube channel. I don't believe in constantly promoting negativity like we see in the typical mainstream media. They're out there to to latch into our emotions and drag us down. They're always trying to drag people down. They don't like to see the success. On the opposite side of it, I love seeing people succeed. I like being there to see the beginning stages of success, the beginning stages of understanding and learning. And that is probably, to me, has been the most rewarding, getting into this YouTube channel from way back, meeting Chip, being able to develop on the chain, meeting everybody else that's involved in the on the chain community and beyond. But there's so much to learn out there. There's so much positivity, and then we're getting impacted and influenced from the outside. So we want to be very cognizant of all those negative things that can happen on the outside, and we want to try to band together, because we've seen a lot of deceptive practices coming from the mainstream media. We see a lot of deceptive practices even within the crypto space, and many of us in this channel have invested in multiple digital assets. Many of us in this that follow on the chain and in general in the communities are also invested in things like XRP and believe in that there's bigger things at stake when we see a company like Ripple really making big leaps and bounds in the cross-border payment space to take on a major entity like Swift. And really also bucking the system, because Swift is so ingrained in the normal flow of things. So that becomes extremely important when we see these amazing things happen around us. But even there, we see these naysayers and people that are constantly trying to shoot it down, and you wonder where those emotions are coming from. We want to try to get beyond that, but let's start uncovering some of the negatives so that we can learn, we can understand, and then we can try to band together to make sure it doesn't have the negative impact on the community. So we have to go back and think about groups like Mt. Gox. Think about what that did, for the space in general. Mt. Gox obviously was extremely negative. But now what about these seemingly regular companies that are potentially taking advantage of our community of investors out there? People that believe in the blockchain technology, people that believe in this digital asset space. And when we talk about the digital asset space, we don't want to focus in on the centralized control, central bank, digital currency that wants to be manipulated and churned to control the people at the hands of the government, which is what we're going to dig into a little bit when it comes to China, because they're right on the forefront of rolling out their digital currency. And we have to question some of the companies out there, some of the American companies. I see it's a complete joke. And I'm at the point of such frustration seeing our companies, our American companies, being ridiculed and taken advantage of. And maybe they have an ulterior motive, which is their profit center in other countries. But they're bucking against what this country stands for by allowing the infiltration of the centralized control mechanisms of a communist regime. So we're going to get a little bit into that, because this is coming directly in opposition and butting heads with digital currency, with everything that has been developed and the foundation and the founding principles of where Bitcoin came from and all the others was to separate away from that kind of control and to be in a slightly more decentralized mechanism. And so we'll dig a little bit into that. But first, the first things that I want to go into, and I think this is really important because with all of this stuff, with all of us here, comes a little bit of responsibility. And I want to get into, and we've covered this before, but I think we need to cover it again kind of as a broader brush. But these are margin accounts, trading platforms, and lending platforms that could potentially be hazardous to your investment health. So we'll get there in a minute. Let me go back to the chat. I think I saw a few comments I wanted to grab. I think I saw maybe a question, but let me go back in here. Wanted to say what's up to Danny Torres for getting up early so that she could be on the stream and participate here on the chain. So it's really good to have you on and good to see you here. So I also love seeing the sea of blue in the comments as they're coming through. So So anyhow, let me see here. I wanted to go back to Matt LaRoche because I saw this flying by, and I definitely wanted to grab this. But one of the things that he had pointed out, and this goes back to doing your own research, understanding the space, understanding and kind of sort through a lot of the FUD and the misinformation, all of that. But here is Matt LaRoche. When I first got in, it was about money returns. Then I started researching Ripple, the connections, and understanding its products and teams. Now I know the trackability and loss of privacy is the downside. When returns come, I'll establish a team of lawyers and accountants, taxation experts, and get a plan. That's a great point. And that's such a broad perspective of really trying to maintain our privacy in this space, trying to maintain some form of anonymity, trying to maintain some form of separation from the centralized government control, especially external government controls. Now, I know that we have viewers from all over the world that tune into On the Chain. They might not all be here early in the morning, but I guess when you go overseas, it's already later. It's mid-afternoon. I don't know what you guys are doing. You're just sitting in your house, so you might as well tune in right now. So, but anyhow, so this is a really, really good point. Is making sure that we protect ourselves in many different aspects. So when you invest, you have to look at every possible variable. So it's not just in our own investment, but even in the investment vehicle, trying to understand, the impacts to this investment vehicle, understanding the external threats to that investment vehicle and the potential controls of that investment vehicle. So I think that's really, really important. Now, Matt LaRoche says they already know what I spend my credits on anyways. So the credit card companies being private entities are able to track more or less. They can print out your report. You can go to Amex. They package it in. They tell you what you spent on groceries, what you spent on electronics, what you spent on everything, especially if you have the business card. It really breaks it down for you to simplify. So yes, in some form there is a mechanism to track your expenditures. However, the governments aren't monitoring it on a regular basis. So if you do something where you end up where they investigate you, then yes, they could potentially request through the courts to gain access to it. Through the Patriot Act, they had a little bit more, we gave up some of our rights and our freedoms in order to potentially protect us from terrorist threat, external potential perceived future terrorist threat against us. So we allowed a little fraction of our freedoms to go away, which is also complex in itself and something that I've talked about, and I've referred back to this book, Demophrenia, which highlights the schizophrenic nature within the democracy, that we're so willing to fight for our freedoms, and yet when we're faced with a threat, we're also, caving in to government demands to give up those freedoms to potentially protect us from a current existing threat, potential threat, or a perception or perceived future threat. But how many of our freedoms are we really willing to give up? And that is, a massive question that we have to identify. And as we go through this is why when we dig into it and we look at what's going on in China and we look at the involvement of American companies in this, there's a direct threat to our freedoms. There's a direct threat to everything that is written in our Constitution. There's a direct threat to the Bill of Rights. So when you get into this, you have to understand, exactly what's happening. Educate yourself. Make sure that you teach your kids also what the meaning and semblance is of that Constitution in those little books that hopefully everybody has a Constitution at home, and you can then teach your kids what it means. The two most important amendments in the Constitution, obviously, number 1 and number 2. The first two, freedom of speech, and then the right to bear arms to protect your freedom of speech. So critical. They have to understand all of the freedoms and the infringement on those freedoms, and we can't allow that, because even now in this space, we have to make sure that we're protecting our interests, our political interests in this country, our economic interests in this country. I'm talking about the U.S., but obviously it reflects on other countries as well. You have to be able to protect your freedoms. You have to protect your freedom of speech. You have to protect your freedom to earn, to build a business. It can't be infringed on. You can't allow others to step on it. We cannot allow other countries to infringe on those freedoms either. And we have to be very cognizant of that fact. And we also don't want companies to take advantage in this space right now, where we have a little bit of loosey-goosey Wild West mentality, with a little bit of a lack of regulatory clarity. Things are potentially happening that we have to be very, very cognizant of, and we have to take responsibilities for our own actions. But we also have to make sure that we're helping others see the light and guide a little bit, without stepping into an environment of, we're giving people specific, I'm going to tell, you got to run out and you got to buy, whatever cryptocurrency it is. But let's get into this. Hang on a second. Let me take a step. Matt LaRoche, say I pay child support. If they want to review you, they go through everything, bank statements, expenditures, true. They can pull your financial, yes. So privacy already gone, more so. That's because of, and that your privacy is gone. However, if you weren't in that scenario where you didn't have to do that, then there's always an if then. So, if, for that situation, if you weren't divorced, let's say you weren't paying child support, they wouldn't have that same right to go through everything at this point unless you did something else. However, through Patriot Act, there was some, if they had suspicion of somebody's involvement, then they could open up certain records and look. But that is a slight invasion. However, if both parties are coming together, it's a slightly different scenario. But that's a whole different argument. So won't be much different, I suppose, if they use blockchain payments or settlements. Yep, KYC is important regardless. So, all right. But let's go back and dig into this. Hang on a second. Let me open this up. We're gonna jump through. I want to go through. Where's my screen share? Hang on a second. My screen share is not. Whoop. My little screen at the bottom was crushed, and it's not opening the window. Hang on a second. We're gonna fix this because it wasn't selecting the right one. There we go. All right, let's make sure that works. It might take a second for it to kick in. I don't know. If it doesn't kick in, then we'll go to plan B. Trying to get the screen share to work, and until I see that kick in here, we're gonna go into something else. Let me transition. Nope, it's not sharing. All right, you guys get to see just a blank screen. That's cool. So anyhow, so we want to go into each one of these, and I wanted to show it and get it up on the screen. It's right here. Capture cursor. It should. This makes no sense why it's not working right now. Of course, this slob system updated as soon as I opened it. New update. Whatever. All right. So let's just go through the points. You guys aren't going to be able to see the screen, but that's unfortunate. But we're going to look at, so we talk a little bit about deceptive practice. If we look at, I'm going to highlight a couple companies. I'm not singling anybody out, but I think it's important that we look at them because they're all operating in this same practice. So we've got Micred, we've got Celsius, we've got Nexo, we've got Bitrue, and we have, I haven't seen it on Binance US, so let's leave Binance US out of this right now. But I believe that on the regular Binance, they were also offering a lending type of platform. So Micred is offering lending. Celsius is offering lending. And then you've got Nexo offering lending, and Bitrue also offers a lending platform, a loan platform. Now, what's the commonality here? And the reason why we need to focus in on this, and the reason why we definitely need to have a change in how they function. And I think this is very, very problematic from many different levels. First of all, we're in a very high risk, high speculative investment space as it is. That's number one. Number two is what they're doing by offering a lending platform. Is it predatory lending? And so can you make a case that it is potentially predatory lending? Are they opening up a solution that could be very beneficial? I'm sure they are sometime in the future. Do they offer all the facts before you actually borrow? Is it right on their front page? Is there, do you need to have a slightly more in-depth knowledge of the investment space before you utilize it? We can make a case to say yes, but the purpose here of a MyCred or the Celsius being able to borrow and pay back on the blockchain, or Nexo, being able to borrow and pay back on the blockchain, or Bitrue with their loan program. There's one common theme. On none of these websites, and unfortunately I don't know why I can't share it, but I would have loved to have shared it, but on none of the websites, not one of them, on their homepage, does it say anywhere about margins. Nowhere. So I'm looking on MyCred. Right here, creds return for what you loan. So that's and what rate and rate for what you borrow. So here it is. So you can earn, yes, you can earn. So earn up to 10% interest on your digital asset. That's great. If you're investing your digital asset, you're not going into a margin type environment. You're putting it up, and basically it's like staking it, but you're going to get an interest paid back as though you're putting it in a bank that's now paying 0.5% or 1% or 1.5%, whatever it is. Lately, no idea. We'd have to check. Borrow cash with your crypto as a collateral. That sounds great. No hidden fees or minimums to start. Awesome. So they make it really sound. They have the security parts of it, the backup plans part of it. They talk about KYC, they talk about AML. It makes it really look real nice and easy. I look here. Pledge your digital asset with one of our trusted partners. This is all on MyCred. This is when they're cold storage, cold hard cash, whatever. Then you get into Celsius, earn, borrow, and pay on the blockchain. It lets you earn interest. And then you scroll down and you look at all their partners that they have. That's awesome. They all have a lot of great partners. And then we get into here it says Celsius Network was founded on the belief that we can do well after we do good for our community. Okay, that's great. You pay the lowest interest on loans. And I scroll down and they have this nice video. They talk about all this high interest that they can pay, need a loan. And this is where it gets a little bit problematic for me. And again, we've covered this before, but the reason why I'm bringing this up is because each one of these loans is also tied in as a margin account of sorts, and it's deceptive from the fact that when the market drops out and there's a devaluation of the collateral that you put up, that you're using collateral to borrow against that collateral, nowhere in here on the home page does it stipulate that once that value drops, that your account can be liquidated. And it's probably in the fine print once you start, when you open up the lending account. We could go through that process and go through all the fine details, but nowhere on the home page where they're promoting how easy it is, no withdrawal fees, no early termination fees, no default fees, fee-free. Charging fees is so 2008. We're not here to take your money. We're here to make you money. And then you have all this great stuff and all the backing, and then you get into Nexo, same thing. Then you get into Bitrue, same thing. They have their loan program, and it's great. It's a lending service platform. Pledge your coins in order to borrow. So you can borrow XRP, you can borrow Ethereum, Bitcoin. It allows you to continue to hold the rights to your digital currency while freeing up working capital. So now what they don't say is, again, if you're on a margin, that if the market drops out, that you're going to potentially risk everything, that you could be liquidated. And actually here maybe they get into it a little bit more, but not so clear. It's not definitely so clear, but it is. And I think actually on BitTrue, out of all of them, because I highlighted it here, they are probably the clearest. Right on, when you click loans and you scroll through, it's actually probably one of the clearer ones, which is interesting. Mandatory delivery rules. When the pledge rate to the mandatory delivery rate, the pledge position when the pledge rate is greater than the mandatory delivery rate, the pledge position will be forced to close. When the pledge rate reaches a dangerous value, BitTrue will notify the user by mail and SMS. For orders when borrowing period of more than 1 month, they can stop the loan. So here it says here, BitTrue has the right to actively stop the loan if the user's risk suddenly rises. Stopping method. The system will automatically deduct the user's arrears, interest plus principal, from the user's asset account and return the user's pledged currency to the user's asset account. If the corresponding balance of the user's asset account is insufficient, the system will enforce the mandatory delivery. So they have, it's amazing. So they state it right on the bottom. When you go through the finer print of the borrowing program, BitTrue is actually the only one that puts it right on their main program and kind of explaining it. But if you don't understand the finer details of what they're talking about with the floating pledge rate and the mandatory delivery rate and what that really means, and the lending pledge rate, so you have to understand what all those dynamics mean before you get into borrowing against your crypto. But many might not understand it or might overlook it because it is finer print. And again, these guys, as you go through it, you click on loans, BitTrue loans, they're the only ones that put it right, boom, right there in front of you. And it's very clear that that in that mechanism. So, but at the end of the day, here you are, you're taking a very speculative product that's high risk, highly volatile, putting it into a mechanism that you're borrowing against, which increases your risk. So one of the reasons why I brought this up is because A, it's risky. If you want to take that risk, everyone has their own risk tolerance. That's up to you. You can make your own choice. But for those out there that are potentially not seeing that aspect of it, because you get in and you're looking at, let's say, a Nexo or a MyCred or a Celsius or many of the others out there that don't necessarily specify, because they highlight no minimum repayments, no hidden fees, no this, no that, interest is debited from your available limit, make repayments at any time. They have all this information that kind of drags you in. Then you say you go to the next level and you start looking a little bit further and you get into it, and no verifications, and it's so easy, it's so simple. They talk about no limits. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. Really interesting, as you go through that. And I think, obviously that's super problematic. So sorry I kind of went through that. Let me go back. See if you guys have anything. So here, when mullet, a crypto loan is no different than a home equity loan, just more volatile. It's definitely volatile. Okay, Texas XRP. Hang on, let me go back up. I flew through this stuff. Jet Digital, like DNI would say, catch the wave now, join them, then change things as we see it. But let me see. Don't invest more than you can lose. That's Twain. Then you've got Texas XRP. All right, question. When you stack your asset, what do they do with your asset when staked? When you stake the asset. I don't. That's a great question. Something that we need to dig into. I don't know what they do with it. I'm not sure if they're putting it into a cold storage and using it as capital that they're leveraging, as collateral against other things, or if they're actually loaning it out. I'm not 100% sure. But good question. if they're staking it. And I did, on Coinbase, I do have a little bit staked on Coinbase. I was trying it out, and then they pay you interest on whatever staked. If you're loaning your digital asset, it's a slightly different environment than if you're borrowing against your digital asset. You're loaning it, but then you're still relying on their platform to perform and not fold. But it's not as, it's a little bit less risky in that scenario because you're putting it up. If you have reliance on Coinbase or MyCred or Nexo or any of the other Celsius to where you're investing and you're gaining interest, that is a little bit different than the other side of it. Like frickin' Clutch here says, doing margin at this point is a suicide mission. Nexo is a suicide mission at this point. Sad to see people getting sucked in during, during the nascency. So a lot of issues. You definitely have to be very, very careful. Here we go. Let's see. Freaking Clutch. Staking puts your tokens in an escrow back on the chain. They can be used in a nodular manner, henceforth to do the work of the network. The staking rewards are just that. Okay, great. Appreciate that. And so, yeah, so there's obviously a lot to it. Again, look at how much it brings a community together. It takes a community to understand every aspect of what we're getting into here. But we have to really look out and protect one another. Now, what happens when you do get liquidated? And I can't tell you how many stories that we've been told now of people getting liquidated off of these exchanges when they had put their collateral up and they were borrowing digital asset against that collateral, and then they get liquidated. Now, in a normal environment, I guess, if you get liquidated, you kind of understand. If you understand the risk, and it's very obvious, like on that BitTrue statement, it was very obvious that you're taking a risk that you could get liquidated. So that's interesting. However, if there's technical issues and you can't cure, and then you get liquidated, which has happened also in multiple scenarios. I know BitTrue had some issue. There were some people talking about that before, where some things happened, and I don't remember. I know they were trying to figure out how they would fix the solution or fix the issue, but that's also problematic, that if you get into that moment and they have technical problems on their servers and they shut you down and you can't access your digital asset, or you can't cure and put more in to raise the valuation, and you get locked out, then they liquidate you. They're still, in my opinion, they still owe some form of retribution back to the people that are on their site. So that could be, something that obviously needs to be dug into a lot more. But now let's go back. I want to sidetrack back to where we started. Because this is really a critical element. So here we have to be very cognizant of what's going on from a margin account perspective, trying to get these short-term gains, and really understanding what it means when you're borrowing against your crypto in a volatile space, and being very prepared for the inevitability that you could be liquidated. I think that's critical. But now let's go back over to this other side of it. Everyone's so fired up about the central bank digital currencies. We see that other countries are starting to get into it little by little. We see that China has been on the forefront. Now, China has been rewriting a lot of narratives lately. China practices deception through communist totalitarian political power, 100% control of the media, 100% influencing and manipulating large corporations in China. So when companies in China get to a certain level, the government steps in and has a seat on their board to manipulate and control the direction of where these companies are going. So as a little bit of an opening, if you see what's happening right now in the world with masks, the N95 and KN95 masks, the medical masks, and so there's a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding of what these types of masks are, how they're certified, FDA certified certifications, NIOSH certifications. There's all of this stuff. Are they on the CDC website? Are they on the FDA website? Is it a fraudulent certification? Are they claiming that the mask is something that it isn't? Yes, it's happening over and over and over again. There's deceptive practice in mass coming out of China, unfortunately, in a time of need, in a time of crisis, where a lot of the masks that ended up hitting the ground were actually not real, and it's causing problems. But then you have the country, the political infrastructure, the leadership under Xi and others are manipulating the narrative and rewriting the narrative as we go. And the mass media is playing along with the rewriting of this narrative. And one of the biggest concerns, one of the biggest threats to us right now, again, to the infringement of our constitutional rights, is this mega invasion coming in from this political infrastructure, this communist political infrastructure over in China, not just as they roll out their central bank digital currencies, but as they're impacting us and the world with the fake medical equipment and supplies that have been coming out, ventilators that are malfunctioning in mass, masks that are fake, etc. But then you have China that actually donated drones through DJI. DJI is probably one of the biggest drone companies. They have one of the best drone technologies that are out there right now. There are a handful of companies in China in different industries that are the best of the best. In many cases, those top-level companies are also then controlled by the Chinese government to get what they want. For instance, there's a big manufacturer right now in China that is reporting and not allowing certain product to flow into the U.S. That's needed based on their own internal political issue. But DJI is a company that's controlled by the government, and that drones were donated to police departments around the U.S. to have those drones spying on Americans. Now, there's already a constitutional dilemma when it comes to the police utilizing a drone. They can monitor the streets with cameras, but there's a problem when they step beyond that bound. They step over the line of monitoring public space to monitoring individuals within that public space, infringing on people's civil liberties, and that is the monitoring of temperature and other things through thermal imaging to then pick out individuals that have temperatures over a certain amount. It steps over a line to where, again, it's an invasion of our rights. Now, it goes back to demophrenia. It goes back to even 9/11 with the Patriot Act, where we were allowing to give up a fraction of our rights in order to protect ourselves from some potential, not real, but potential threat that could happen in the future. So we have to be very cognizant and careful on how we structure these things. It is a constitutional dilemma that will be handled by smarter people in the legal space. Constitutional lawyers are going to have to fight over this stuff. But for them to monitor your temperature, that's one dilemma. The other dilemma is that these drones, think about it, drones are used for monitoring. These drones are being donated by a company out of China that has the potential, and it's already been well documented, that they can also then add tracking code into these drones to capture the imagery and whatever else they want to utilize these drones to capture information to be sent back to the government in China. So we have to look at that ulterior motive. But the reason why I bring that one up first is because the next one that we're going to get into here, when we talk about the central bank digital currencies, we've all been really excited about looking at the central bank digital currency, and yet China has been pushing forward. Supposedly they've been working on this for 6 years. That's a big question. So has China really been working on this for 6 years? or did they just say they were working on it for 6 years? But maybe they were, because they're, at the end of the day, they want to be able to monitor, they want to be able to manipulate, and they want to be able to control the flow of currency and who can use it when and where. Now, the next step that becomes very problematic that we have to be very cognizant of is that Starbucks, McDonald's, Subway, among other American franchised companies that are over in China, are are going to be some of the first to actually participate in this central bank digital currency rollout. Now, I wasn't sure if I inhaled the coffee or the water. So here we have a major problem. Again, we have China, the Chinese government, which is a communist government that's centralized control of their people, control of their economy, controlling of the narrative, controlling of the media, controlling of every aspect of everything that happens within China and out. So now they're going to be the first ones to roll out a digital currency out of their central bank and getting American companies involved. So now that you have a digital currency baked into an American franchise, what more does that do? How easy is it now for them? The reason why they choose that, you have to think a little bit further down the road. Think about how that digital currency, now it's in an American company, can easily penetrate into other countries, can easily penetrate into the United States. Now, why would we want a digital currency controlled by China to be able to infiltrate into the United States through a Starbucks, through a Subway, or through any other franchise like a McDonald's? Now, if all of a sudden these companies like a Starbucks say, hey, you know what, we're going to start working with this new digital currency. It's going to be Starbucks. I get it, Starbucks. And so we're Starbucks. So we're going to start working with these Starbucks, and you're going to get this and that. And meanwhile, we find out that it's actually built and set up on this Chinese digital currency wrapped in who knows what. That becomes problematic, and that's where we have to be very cognizant. Going back to my first question, right? My first question was, major question, how many of us got involved in this space to see it get hijacked, and how many of us got into this space to see fraud, deception, and centralized control take over? I think that's a major question. I think it's a valid question. I think it's a valid concern that we monitor and we understand, what's happening, and we also are able to then understand that if an American company gets in bed with the Chinese central bank to bring in their central currency into the United States, that it's highly problematic. But also, when we've gone through this whole scenario, and again, in all my conversations, I've never ever, highlighted, and I would never, go after the people of any country. But the governments are definitely, fair game in the corruption that they have overall. It's definitely a corruptive nature as they try to reach their financial tentacles into other countries, and it's extremely problematic, and something that we have to observe on a regular basis and be very cautious of. That one primary concern and question. So let's see. Let me scroll back up here. I just want to give David D a shout out here because he threw in a couple big comments. So you started talking about the margin really isn't for the novice, and I want to highlight that again. Go back to that point. I definitely want to highlight your comment there. I think it's really important. Even trading margin in stocks. I've never been comfortable utilizing margin in trading stock. I've never wanted to go there, so I can't imagine, utilizing margin in the crypto space. It's too it's too scary. Fab, are they real lemons? I am the keeper of the last lemon tree in the post-apocalyptic world, and that's it right there. That's the last lemon tree on Earth. And as I started the stream, many of you weren't here, but this is day 39 of my observing of the protection of the last lemon tree in the post-apocalyptic world. And again, that's it right there. So one day I'll pick a lemon and maybe share it with everybody. David D, congrats, Chip and Jeff. OTC is taking off. Content and production value is always improving. Keep up the great work. Appreciate it, David D. We're doing our best. We're really getting it out there. A lot of great things planned. A lot of great content planned. We got some other really amazing things that are happening this week that we're going to start bringing some of that out hopefully within the week. It's going to be really, really crazy, and I just want to give a shout out to everyone that's bounced in that as well, like Simon and Annalise. It's always great to have you guys on here. Yep. So let me see here. Oh, Farshad, man, I haven't seen you on here in a while. Really good to see Farshad. Hopefully you set up a workout space in your house, because I know you're always heading out to the to work out with your son. So hopefully you can get that. You got that set up. So gaming crypto, what's up, man? Good to see you on here as well. Glad that you made it on, and BZ comedy and all of that. So and here's yeah. So anyhow, let me where were we? There was something else. Okay. So anyhow, so one of the main directions here that, again, and just to kind of to summarize and kind of wrap it all up, is the fact that we're all able to work together, each one of us doing our own research. However, being able to come back into the community, coming into the on-the-chain community, being able to share this information through the on-the-chain community, whatever that might be, opinions, fact, whatever it is, to be able to hash out certain things. Again, as we go back through and we see deceptive practice, we see anything that we're concerned about, if there's any questions that we might have that we want to try to figure out, we don't all necessarily have the answer. However, together as a community, we can definitely navigate through it, and we can find the answers together. And this is one of the key reasons why we started to set up our Telegram channel, which if you go to go into the description, there should be a link, but go to the one that is t.me/onthechain_roundtable. The roundtable Telegram channel allows us to communicate with each other. We can chat back and forth. The other one, which I didn't post anything in this morning, should have, but the other Telegram channel is really just a highlight when we have videos coming up, and people might get pinged on that one. I like the roundtable one a lot because it's going to allow us to really engage with everybody and start using it. What's up, Farshad, man? Thank you very much for the $9.99 and the flying. I don't know what that is. The flying guy there. So that's really cool. A lot of other things that have been coming out, and as we get into this more and more, as we become more and more observant in making sure that we're able to share this content with each other. That's it. I think that's really the theme of all of this. So go back to the beginning. Go back to my first question. Think about this. Throw in some comments into our Telegram roundtable. Think about whether or not there's components within our space that are trying to hijack the space, and think about if there's anything out there that is fraudulent, deceptive, and when we see the centralized control starting to occur, and being able to really be cognizant of these central bank digital currencies, being very cognizant of the digital dollar that is not a cryptocurrency. So digital currency doesn't mean it's a cryptocurrency or built on blockchain technology. It just means that it's digital. So we have to be very cognizant of that as well. So again, man, I appreciate all of you guys for coming on. Thank you, Farshad, for the $9.99. Really appreciate that. It's awesome seeing you on again. It's great seeing everybody. I'm really glad I was able to spend Saturday morning with everyone. Looking forward to seeing you guys tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Right here on the chain on the roundtable. Tomorrow night's going to be special because it's going to be live. And we're going to have an announcement of a new show that we're going to be rolling out. We'll talk about that tomorrow night. Looking forward to seeing you guys on. Remember, tune in 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow night right here on the chain, on the roundtable. And until then, I'll check you out next time, and we'll check you out on the next HODL review. See ya.
Are you down with OTC? Please like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when the next video drops.